Check this out! This new smartphone is awesome. You can stream movies and TV shows from different countries, and you can sign up for immersive virtual travel tours or global cooking classes. Aside from the social media platforms that can connect you to people from all corners of the world, it now has an app that lets users translate conversations into thousands of different languages. Plus, it comes with a shopping app where you can buy international food, clothes, and electronics. At the rate it's going, it feels like in a few years, that phone will allow you to have a hot, steaming bowl of ramen delivered straight from Tokyo to your door in under an hour. Okay, well, maybe that isn't totally realistic, but it definitely feels like this smartphone is your doorway to the world. Not only does this smartphone connect you to the larger world, it's also the product of that larger world. Sure, an American company sold the phone, but a Norwegian company designed it, and it was assembled in China. The glass for the touchscreen comes from South Korea, the camera lens was manufactured in Germany, and the processor chip was made from metals mined in Central Asia. This is all an example of the economic concept of globalization, an ongoing process that is shaping modern economies. Globalization is the process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments worldwide. Technological advances like this new smartphone are the result of two huge factors: interconnected knowledge, skills, and resources, and increasing cooperation and agreement between companies and countries all over the world. And all of this is giving rise to multinational corporations. A multinational is a corporation that has facilities or assets in at least one country other than its home country. So if an American smartphone company owns a factory in China to assemble those phones, it is a multinational. Let's check in for a moment. One of your friends isn't sure that globalization has a major impact on their daily life. What could you say to explain the impact of globalization? Take a second to answer the question. Well, you might tell them that globalization is fueling technological advances like smartphone development. Globalization also makes it easier to access goods and services from other countries. For consumers, globalization has brought about some pretty big benefits. And as markets across the globe become more connected, the availability and variety of goods and services in a market increases. There are those technological advances like smartphones, plus those international snacks and foreign movies that you can use the smartphone to access. Globalization also means that more firms have access to different markets. And as more firms from all over the globe enter into these markets, it increases the number of competitors in those markets. What does more competitors in a market mean for consumers? That's right, lower prices. Thanks to globalization, other nations benefit from increased investment. That American smartphone company, in order to access necessary materials, invested in the mining industry in several Central Asian nations, which spurred economic growth in those countries. All of this leads to economic diversification. Nations are better able to produce a wider variety of goods and services. Maybe those factories in China started out assembling smartphones, but then they took what they learned from that process to branch out into assembling other electronics like televisions and laptops. Then they moved from just assembling those products to manufacturing the component parts as well. But all of this activity requires global supply chains. A supply chain refers to the path products take from being grown or made to being bought or used by the end consumer. These supply chains are vast networks that include all of the individuals, organizations, and places involved in the production of a good or service, from the raw materials all the way through to the end consumer. So that means that even if the phone is purchased in the United States, the supply chain connects it to places like South Korea, Germany, China, and Central Asia. Plus, globalization helps fuel changes to the job market. All of those apps for smartphones, well, they require developers who can design the app and write the code necessary to run it. Now, there are people out there who make some pretty good money developing those apps. Okay, so let's check in for a moment. What do you think the net impact of globalization is on the overall health of the global economy? What is your rationale? Pause for a moment to answer the question. Globalization leads to economic growth due to increased choice and lower prices for consumers, as well as economic diversification and increased investment for foreign companies and nations. It also helps fuel job growth. All of this sounds great, right? Well, let's not forget that this is an economics course. So with all of those benefits, there are some pretty big trade-offs too. As new products enter the market, older products can be forced out of the market. Let's take smartphones as an example. As more options became available and more people began buying them, the market for home phones dried up. Fewer and fewer people needed landlines. And while it's great to have less expensive products entering the market from all over the globe, it can lead to decreased revenue for homegrown products. Imagine that 5 years from now, a foreign company introduces a smartphone that not only costs less than the ones produced by American companies, but has a better camera, more storage, a wider variety of apps, and is easier to use. Well, more consumers may start purchasing that foreign model, leading to lower revenue and profitability for the American company. And while companies investing overseas improves the global economy as a whole, it also means decreasing investment here at home. The money that the American smartphone company used to build out the assembly plant in China could have been used to update facilities here or invest in workforce development. And as nations across the world diversify their economies and develop new industries, it is important to remember this might harm traditional industries. For example, if workers in China move to the city to work assembling smartphones, it could mean there are fewer agricultural workers. And as globalization changes where and how economic activity occurs, nations that don't adjust to changes can often experience economic contraction rather than growth. For example, if a company in India begins producing camera lenses for smartphones, companies in Germany might need to adjust production in order to avoid being left behind. And that goes for workers too. Workers who help assemble smartphones here in America could find themselves out of a job if they don't adjust their skill sets if production continues to move overseas. Plus, with increasingly complex global supply chains, small disruptions can have huge implications. That smartphone is run by a powerful processor. What happens if all of a sudden the factory producing the processors is forced to shut down? Well, that really grinds production of the smartphone to a halt. All of these trade-offs caused by globalization can have a huge impact on individuals and nations. But it is essential to remember that companies are making decisions about how to best benefit the business in both the short and long term. Okay, time for one final check-in. Your friend loves all of the increased options that globalization has to offer. They don't see a downside at all. What could you say to them? Take a moment and meet me back here to go over the answer. You may want to talk with your friend about the trade-offs brought about by globalization. It can lead to older products being crowded out of the market, decreased revenue for domestic companies, economic contraction, and job loss. Okay, let's recap. Today we learned that globalization is the process of increasing interaction and integration between people, companies, and governments worldwide. It has led to technological advancements and the rise of multinational corporations. Some of the benefits of globalization include increased product variety, lower prices, increased investment abroad, economic diversification and growth, global supply chains, and changes to the job market. And while these changes do benefit consumers, producers, and national economies, they also come with some pretty significant trade-offs. Tomorrow, we're going to look even deeper into the impacts of globalization on the modern economy. But until then, remember to keep investing in yourself, one lesson at a time. See you next time. Hey.